Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Forum Daily West. Here are some of the top stories we've been following. U.S. President Trump speaks with the leaders of Ukraine and Russia in separate phone calls to align the countries in a ceasefire agreement. Plus, Ukrainian POWs are returned as part of one of the largest prisoner swaps with Russia. And former Liberal MP warns of what a Mark Carney-led future may hold for Canada. Thanks so much for joining us. Both the Chinese embassy in Ottawa confirmed that 4 Canadians were executed earlier this year. China insists it had solid evidence leading to its execution of the Canadian citizens. A Chinese embassy statement highlighted Beijing's zero-tolerance drug crime policy, but did not explicitly say the Canadians executed had been convicted of drug crimes. Global Affairs Canada says it strongly condemns China's use of the death penalty and had repeatedly called for clemency for the Canadians. U.S. President Donald Trump says he spoke with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for about an hour this morning, one day after he had a call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Trump took to social media to say the call was to align both Russia and Ukraine in terms of their requests and needs as he looks to bring about a ceasefire between the two countries. While Putin reportedly agreed to not target energy infrastructure in Russia's ongoing war with Ukraine, he refused to back a full 30-day ceasefire. On Wednesday, the Russian president announced that his troops were routing Ukrainian forces in the Kursk region. Meantime, Russia and Ukraine said they swapped 175 prisoners of war from each side Wednesday in one of the largest exchanges of POWs in the 3-year conflict. Canada's new Prime Minister will hold his debut First Minister's meeting at the end of the week. His office says Carney's top priorities will include defending Canadians in the face of unjustified trade actions by the U.S. and strengthening the economy. Carney has a meeting planned today with his Advisory Council on Canada-U.S. relations. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is responding to comments made about him by U.S. President Donald Trump during a Fox News interview. Trump was asked about a possible upcoming Canadian election during Tuesday night's interview and the fact that polls now suggest the Liberals are in the lead. He said he doesn't care who wins, but thinks it would be easier to deal with a Liberal, while referring to Poilievre as being, quote, no friend of mine. Poilievre told a news conference in Sudbury, Ontario, Wednesday that Trump is right to think he would have an easier time dealing with a Liberal Prime Minister, before referring to himself as a strong leader and a tough negotiator.
Yesterday, the president said that having a Liberal Prime Minister would be easier for him to deal with, just as he threatened once again to make us the 51st state. And you know what? On that point, it's true. I'm a strong leader. I'm a tough guy to deal with. I'm firm in my convictions, and I'll always put Canada first. It's clear that President Trump wants the Liberals in power because they will keep this country weak. That's exactly the kind of weak, compromised, conflicted leadership that Donald Trump wants, and it's why he endorsed Mark Carney yesterday. What Canadians need, though, is a leader who's tough and firm and stands by his convictions, a leader who will make Canada strong, self-reliant, and stand on its own 2 feet, a leader who will put Canada first.
The Conservative leader also says his government would waste no time in getting the green light for federal Ring of Fire permits, along with approval for the building of roads to get to the Northwestern Ontario site. The area north of Thunder Bay contains critical minerals like nickel, copper, platinum, and cobalt that are potentially worth tens of billions of dollars.
That's why I'm announcing today that my government will set a deadline of 6 months to green light permits for the Ring of Fire. We will unleash the production of chromite, cobalt, copper, nickel, platinum, and others. We will also commit $1 billion over 3 years to help the Ontario government build the highway to get there. And because NATO has identified many of these critical minerals as necessary for our common security, we can count some of the expenditure on the road towards our NATO 2% target for defense.
The federal government has announced their intention to continue support for the revised Green Line LRT project in Calgary. In a statement, Alberta Minister for Transportation and Economic Corridors, Devin Dreeshen, said the provincial government is pleased that the federal government has approved the City of Calgary's revised business case for the LRT project, which has suffered through long delays and cost overrun concerns. Calgary Mayor Jyoti Gondek says she learned about the project from the province's own news release and adds that she wishes the city would have gotten more direct correspondence. She also disputed timelines on developments of the project. The line will stretch from downtown to the district of Shepherd, with the designing of set to be finished by 2026. The new Green Line will receive $1.53 billion from the federal government, which will cost a total amount of over $6 billion. Well, Airbnb released an article on Tuesday that says that domestic stays across Canada have increased 20% since the beginning of the year. The site also lists a number of domestic destinations that Canadians have reportedly been traveling to the most. And one of these places is right here in Lethbridge. Lethbridge joins a list of 11 trending communities that include Quebec City, Yellowknife, and Campbell River, BC. Tourism Lethbridge says that alongside canceled travel plans to the U.S., there is an expectation that more travelers in Canada will be curious about the sights and sounds of southern Alberta.
I think that Airbnb type of accommodations are getting a little bit more popular, especially for people that are traveling with their families, with their pets. We know that that makes it a little bit easier for them to travel in those longer term stays. And I think we're really lucky in our region. In the short term, I do know a lot of people that maybe did have trips booked to the United States and chose to stay a little bit more local instead. And this is a great opportunity for Canadians to explore what they have here and get to learn a little bit more about the culture and the land that they are residing in.
The Airbnb article mentions that over the last yearly quarter, short-time rentals for couples have increased by 40%, while single bookings are up by 30%. Stats Canada released their newly updated population statistics, and trends show that growth has slowed considerably. Canada's overall population increased slightly by 63,000 or 0.2% to just above 41,500,000 residents. Almost half of those additions made their way to Alberta, which saw an increase of almost 30,000 people, or by 0.6% to over 4.8 million. In other provinces, BC virtually did not see an increase or decrease in population. Saskatchewan and Manitoba each saw a 0.3% increase, and Ontario and Quebec both saw marginal increase rates of 0.1%. However, combined, they took in a third of new residents in the country. The Atlantic part of Canada, in Atlantic Canada, most provinces saw insignificant decreases, with the exception of New Brunswick, that saw a 0.2% rise. As for the territories, Yukon and Nunavut obtained a 0.4% increase, while the Northwest Territories saw a 0.3% increase. Stats Canada says the decrease in non-permanent residents is in part responsible for the slow population growth. Well, a group of students from Chinook High School contributed to the fight against hunger by, of all things, building a friendly yellow structure made of cans of food. Our BCN's Heidi Echevarria has the story of Canstruction.
The structure that we came up with was SpongeBob SquarePants, the cartoon character, along with his friend Gary the Snail and Plankton. And with other cans that were donated, we did our best to create an oceanscape that would represent their home of Bikini Bottom.
Creativity of talent took over the Center Village Mall. Various structures made from cans of tuna, beans, mushroom, and coffee, among others, demonstrated that in Lethbridge, talent transforms food into work of art.
When we got to build day, it really was a culmination of a lot of hard work and effort.
Joining Kens and shaping them until they achieved the desired result. Although they knew the challenge ahead, they desired to give it their all.
When we started meeting, it was kind of like unsure, but as the date kept coming up and we kept meeting more, I think we really developed a really nice, firm plan, and then that translated into a really fast and fun build process.
I don't have much relation to architecture or engineering, but it was like a cool insight into something.
Shows people what you can do with cans, but then also none of the food is wasted, and it goes to like a really good cause.
Well, it is wonderful to see how members of our community are recognized for their significant contribution to society. And during a ceremony hosted by YMCA, awards and scholarships were presented, including the King Charles III Coronation Medal, the YMCA of Lethbridge Community Engagement Scholarship, and the RBC Future Launch Scholarship for Black Youth. Christina Larkin, YMCA Director of Community Development, shared more about the ceremony.
Our King Charles Medal winners today are people who have really gone above and beyond in their roles, which is one of the criteria. We put on the extra criteria of them being young people because we really want to highlight here at the YMCA of Lethbridge, the young people make a huge difference in their city and in their country. First, we have Wisdom, who is a volunteer here at the YMCA, and as an international student, he has gone above and beyond, juggling the many, many things that international students and newcomers to our community. And second, we have Paige, who is just a multifaceted, fantastic person here in Lethbridge. She's currently away as part of the 3-on-3 basketball team representing Team Canada.
It means a lot to be honored with this medal. I really appreciate everyone who noticed the work I've been doing so far. The work I've done so far in itself has been much more rewarding, be it parents complimenting me and everything, and I really, really appreciate that from parents as well.
The King Charles III Coronation Medal was introduced in early 2024 to commemorate His Majesty's coronation on May the 6th of 2023. Well, after a week-long trip to the International Space Station turned into a 9-month stay, 2 NASA astronauts have finally touched down, or splashed down rather, on Earth. Yesterday at 5:57 p.m. Eastern Time, Sunny Williams and Butch Wilmore came back to the Earth's surface for the first time since they launched into space last June. SpaceX Dawn pilot Colonel Scott Poteet shared his thoughts on our partner station, Dr. Phil's Merit TV. And as it turns out, our own University of Lethbridge has a connection to NASA, as they have studied the effects of a changing environment on astronauts who go into outer space. Dr. Gerlinda Metz is a neuroscientist at ULeth, and we've had her on our show before to discuss how stress factors can impact the body. And while I can't think of a more stressful or even hostile environment than outer space, Dr. Metz joins me now. Dr. Metz, thank you for being here. Are you able to, in a nutshell, explain what the negative impacts could be of going into outer space for as long as Sunny and Butch did this past year?
There are many issues to spend that long out there. They're socially isolated, they have vibration, they have noise, they are confined, they are disconnected from their friends and family. And of course, they experience what everyone first thinks about, which is microgravity and also radiation of space. And so these are significant health concerns. Aging goes much more rapidly than on Earth. So you have all these stressors. You also have the lack of exposure to a gravity environment, which shifts the fluid inside your body. It actually shifts fluid into your head, and you end up having more liquid in your face and in your head than you usually have. It changes the cardiovascular system, so how your heart works. It changes muscle activity and bone density. Among pretty much any other organ, the brain, the kidneys, digestion, everything is affected by staying in space. And What I've seen in the reports is that especially Sunita Williams experienced some more significant bone loss than what was expected, and it was very urgent to try to get her back to Earth into a gravity environment and out of the radiation and so on.
That's just crazy and fascinating. Dr. Metz, what about long-term effects? Now that they're back here on Earth, are their bodies going to be in shock from re-entering Earth's atmosphere, where they'll have to almost go through a decompression time frame almost?
Yeah, kind of, really. It's actually like you're saying. So they're actually going into a long-term rehab program. These astronauts have to slowly start learning to use their muscles. Along with that, they have to also make sure they're taking proper measures to build their bone strength back up if they can, because spaceflight is like an accelerated aging process. You go through aging like 10 times faster than what you see on Earth, and this will take quite a while probably to rebuild the strength to be able to walk properly.
That is your Forum Daily West report. I'm Jeanette Roche. Thanks so much for watching.